Journey Johnson?
I love this question. um, well, as early as a few years ago, my answers would have varied depending on who was asking me. If you were in the art scene, then I would have told you that I was an author, a performing poet, a spoken word artist. If you were in the business field, I would have told you I was a director of sales, But today, I only have one answer to that question, and what I am today is the elephant in the room. What I am today is the elephant in the room introducing myself. I am not waiting for anyone else to acknowledge me. And speaking on behalf of suicide and mental illness, what I found is that if we wait for someone else to address these topics, we're going to wait forever. And so I will be that elephant, and I will put myself in the situations in order to open the door for other people to say, okay, yeah, it's okay to I'm glad she's here because this has been on my mind and now I can get it out.
I like that elephant in the room that you're saying, hey, because people want to address the elephant in the room, hey, I'm here. I'm going to talk about that thing that you guys don't want to talk about.
Exactly.
Let's address it.
Exactly.
I love that.
Exactly.
I love that that confidence that you have, that you're being strong in it, and you're saying, this is a situation that we need to talk about.
Yes,
and I think
absolutely.
that the people don't want to talk about it because of ignorance. And of course we know ignorance is just not knowing. And so they don't want to talk about something that they don't know about, and they have their own concept of what it is, right?
Absolutely. And a lot of times people don't want to talk about it also because it's embarrassing. There's a shame to it. And that is a burden that being the elephant in the room also, it's not to put anyone on this, to do is to take the burden off. Because if you ever noticed, if you're ever in a crowded room, have you ever been in a meeting, per se, if there's a whole lot of people in there, the leader of the meeting will ask a question. Out of shyness, no one wants to raise their hand. No one wants to sound stupid, right? No one wants to put themselves out there, so they're going to wait for somebody else to do it. And oftentimes that just drags the whole thing on. And what being the elephant in the room of No Suicide Before Recess does is that by speaking first, you take off the burden of the embarrassment, of the shame, because obviously if someone else is going to speak on it, it's a thing, If no one's speaking on it, then we're left to hold it in our minds by ourselves. And what we do with that is dangerous. And what we're trying to do at No Suicide Before Recess is to lay out the platform to give people the opportunity to say, okay, thank you. I've been wanting to say something that I was afraid to. I was afraid of being looked at like I was crazy, quote unquote, right? Or I was afraid of being alienated or people thinking something was wrong with me. But now that I see you out here and other people out here and you look normal, you look like you're having a normal life, quote unquote, it must be okay. It's okay for me. And it's especially important. I know our name is No Suicide Before Recess. A lot of people equate that with the youth, and the name actually comes from. Also, it's important to understand that it's women. I'm not sure how old you are, Lady Michelle. I'm not going to ask, but I'm 46, right? And a lot of people think that suicide ideation is something that is a youthful thing. People are trying to figure themselves out. They're being overdramatic. And so it catches you when you're young. But no, a lot of times it's when you get to our age, or my age rather, and older, and you're looking at life and other things that you think you're supposed to have accomplished because society has told you these things.
That's right.
And you don't know how you're going to do it, or you run out of time to do it. And also not only the lack of achievement, but people on top of their game as well. When you get to the point where you say, well, if this is it, then what is there left to live for?
That's
and
right.
it's a dialogue. Yeah, it's a dialogue between everyone, all the generations involved.
So let me ask you this. You brought up a key word here that many of my listeners may not know what this is, suicide ideation. So can you go a little deeper into that word and tell us about it?
Absolutely. Suicide ideation is just a rewording of suicidal tendencies that they have. It's evolved to suicide ideation, and what it is a preoccupation with the thought of death, with the thought of suicide, and other types of mental illness. It's a chronic, and it's a plaguing thing, and it can be either chronic over years, or it can come in dangerous spurts where that's all you think about, and that is what suicide ideation is.
Even though we're talking about a really taboo topic, we do have to learn how to laugh and how to smile on some days, because you don't want to just take life so seriously that you're just in a gloom and doom type of day all the time. Yeah, we know we have some good days and we have some bad days. We've been through some traumatic things, but we have to learn how to smile and how to laugh. So,
absolutely. That's why comedians are so medicinal, because though they have the power to make people laugh, a lot of comedians are some of the darkest people you're ever going to meet. What they've done is they found a way to channel that darkness into something that is an elixir to make life more bearable. And I think comedians are important in our community, because like you said, we all go through our traumas, we all go through our ups and downs, and just to be able to laugh in itself is therapeutic, and it's an important thing to do.
Absolutely. So, you talked a little bit about people not wanting to talk about this topic because of the shame and things like that. So what I want you to take the audience through is, what are some of the common myths about suicide? And maybe with some of the signs and symptoms and different things like that. You can kind of like tie all that in there.
Absolutely, thank you. Some of the common myths are, and this is where a lot of people fall through the cracks. A lot of the common myths are, one is that it's an obvious sign. People think that someone who is suffering from suicide ideation or suicidal thoughts, you can look at them and tell that they're messed up. You can look at them and say, wow, that person is just, you know what I mean, they're at the end of their ropes. And it's not obvious. It's not obvious at all, and that's why suicide takes so many people by surprise. The other misconception is that someone suffering from suicide suicidal ideation is going through some crisis, because we look as human beings for understanding. We look to make sense of everything. And so if someone takes their life, we're looking around to see what in their life, to our standards and to society's standards, caused this, not realizing that it could have been nothing that you could have seen from the outside. That's why it is a mental illness. It's an insight. So a lot of times there is no crisis preceding it. We just talked about how sometimes you can be at the top of your game and just think like, wow, if this is it, then I'm out. That's another misconception of it. And, the list goes on, but another one I would tell you is people assume oftentimes that mental illness is historical. They'll say, okay, this person has always acted out in strange ways, This person has always been dramatic. This person has always been just over the top. This person was diagnosed with schizophrenia or major depression or PTSD, and that's not the case because of the stigma, because of the taboo, which is no longer serving us, by the way. That's why we need to get rid of that taboo. It does not serve anyone. But because of those things, a lot of us go undiagnosed for years, for our whole lives. Wow. And so there's not going to be a history to look back and say, okay, because this person was diagnosed, let's take a closer look, keep an eye on that person. That's not how it works at all. And so to the other side of that coin is some of the symptoms that you can look
that's
for.
important.
You know,
we need to know about those symptoms. Come on.
Right. Absolutely. Yeah. Some of the symptoms are withdrawal. You know, that's the contrast to people thinking, "Wow, he didn't look depressed," right? To someone looking absolutely carefree, nonchalant, aloof. Oftentimes, what that is, it's a sign of detachment because in their mind they're leaving. And so what they would do, or what we will do, is to withdraw. And our lack of interest, we lose interest because these things are not going to matter to us pretty soon. That's the dangerous part.
Wow.
But from the outside looking in, it looks like, they're just removed from everything. They don't care. And that's a dangerous misconception. So that's one of the symptoms. The other symptom is, and this one I went through myself personally, and I will interject some of my stories in here, just
Please
for
do.
examples. This I went through is changes in sleeping habits, sleeping patterns. Like me, I'm a sleepy person. I need my naps every day. Right? And sometimes my naps people think they're not even naps, they're sleeps because I sleep so long. Well, a few years ago when I was living in Hawaii, I went through an insomniatic bout where I didn't realize what was coming upon me. I just know that my mind was always going, and when it came time to sleep, I would not even get to the point of sleepiness. And so this went on for a good week, or a couple of weeks, until finally I went to the doctor. And actually what I wanted, and I think we need to understand to look at the signs for ourselves, and not to dismiss it as, okay, I'm just not a night owl. If you were never a night owl before and all of a sudden you can't sleep, take care of yourself. Go question. Right. And if you don't know why, then go find out why. You deserve that. Be your friend, So when I went to the doctors and I thought they were just going to give me some Ambien or something to let me sleep. But thank God they looked closer and deeper and realized that was the root of a bigger problem. And for me, I was getting close to suicidal acts, And that was important. That's why it's so important for us to talk, and that's what No Suicide for Rhesus is about.
Now, you talked about something right before we went to break, and before we get into your movement, you talked about the Ambien, and you talked about the sleep and how sleep deprivation, or I guess insomnia, how that goes with the depression. And I can remember going through my abuse and having that sleeping problem, and I went to the doctors. But here's a key, and I want people to understand this too, because there are tricks, and those who are, how can I say, the survivors, we're pretty good liars, right? We're pretty good liars because that's how we survive, right?
Yes.
And so, and I know nobody wants to be truthful about that, but you and I, we're going to be truthful about that. And
absolutely.
I was able to go to my doctor and trick him into giving me those Ambien. He kept asking me, am I depressed? And I was like, no, I'm good. I just work a lot, and I just need to, be able to go to sleep. My time schedule's off, and, all that. And I was addicted to Ambien. Addicted.
Right.
Yes,
that was my story, too. He asked me, and I was like, no, I just can't sleep. I had no idea. So, yeah.
Yeah. But I was doing it on purpose. Like, I needed to get those pills because I wanted that to take away my pain that I was going through. And so, thank God that it didn't go that way, that I, didn't take any overdoses or anything like that. But that can happen, and, we have to bring about awareness because people are out here, getting those prescriptions because they're planning on taking their lives. Because of all of the things that you talked about, the withdrawal and the nonchalant attitude and all those different things, So I just wanted to bring it up and let people know that.
Right. I'm glad you did to stay on that topic because I I did an episode recently. I think it was our January episode with a Vietnam veteran, and he does a lot of work in substance abuse. And he has this thing of saying mental illness, depression, suicide ideation, those things lead to so many other things. Just trying to survive it, trying to survive that feeling, like you were speaking on. And what it does, his terminology is like a slow suicide. Not everything is immediate, you know. A lot of times we'll stockpile these things so that, because we have a plan, you know. But also, a lot of times we take a very lifetime long suicide on itself. If you're talking about alcohol, you know, or other types of substances, all into, we think, okay, it's to numb the pain. And you know, a lot of times what we're doing is we're killing ourselves, but we're killing ourselves so slowly. And it looks like other things, you know. It looks like just having fun, you know, or it looks like somebody will dismiss someone as being an alcoholic, not knowing that they are doing that to numb some kind of pain. There's some kind of pain in there, and the judgment is what we have to get away from as well, you know.
Absolutely.
To get these Ambien, you know, it was a purpose, but the purpose was not even a shady purpose. It was a sincere purpose. There was something that needed to be addressed. You wanted to retain your power in a way, you know, and to numb as well. You know, these are all, I mean, it gets so convoluted when you get into it, but yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up.
Oh, absolutely. And the thing about it is, there are so many different types of abuse out there that people are trying to hide from, or trying to hide that pain from. And they use these types of things, like you said, the alcohol, the pills, the cutting, so many things they'll do to themselves, because self-pain, you know, we go through that type of abuse. You start to self-inflict pain on yourself, you know. And so I'm so glad that you had this movement. And I want you to tell us about this movement, because this movement, you're changing lives. You're bringing about awareness, and you're opening up people's minds to see this in a different way, and to get help, and to help their loved ones. So I'm not going to take too much of the floor. You tell us about your movement.
Thank you. No suicide before recess. First and foremost, why no suicide before recess? I have suffered from suicide ideology since I was a kid. I'm one of those people, for as long as I can remember, you know. And the no suicide before recess comes because life is almost like, I remember sitting in my classroom in kindergarten, right? And you got to sit Indian style in a little circle, and then they're teaching you how to spell your name and all these things. Well, a lot of times kids zone out. They can't wait for recess. They're like, oh, my God, I can't take another lesson. You know, I can't take another 1+1. But the bell rings, and all of a sudden, all of that stress, all of that stuff, it just erases, and we run out and we play and we feel good. And that always comes, that bell always rings. It always rings. Whether you're a child, you're an elder, or you're smack dab in the middle. For adults, that recess bell looks like other things. It looks like a vacation. You know, it looks like a good day when you're actually laughing and nothing is stressing you out. You know, it looks like some friend calling you out of the blue. Those are all little recesses that happen to disrupt the depression and the ideations that kind of plague us. You know what I mean? If we're coming from situations of abuse, where so many factors are out of our control, recess comes sometimes if that person don't ever come home that day, you know, or just had just other things on the mind, couldn't inflict the amount of pain that is normally done. And so these are like little signs. Recess is like finally getting the courage just to break free and just leave. And that's That's the major bell that we all need to kind of be looking for. You know what I mean? Um, no suicide before Reese's started officially last summer, and that's because the year before, 2 summers before, I ended up in the hospital for well over a week. They had to keep me. And that's because I did not think I was going to make it out. And what I mean by not making it out is, how do I say this succinctly? I'm not sure if you're familiar with Chester Benningfield. His name is Chester Benningfield. From Lincoln Park. He was one of the frontmen for a band called Lincoln Park. And he did an interview one time that really touched me. He committed suicide last summer. Okay. So in this interview, he talked about our minds being like this bad neighborhood, right? And when you're going through this bad neighborhood, as far as being suicidal, about being depressed, you're going through the bad neighborhood, and whenever you go through a bad neighborhood, your senses are heightened, your awareness is heightened. You know, you kind of like you're looking everywhere. You're very vigilant of your surroundings because you know that there is danger around. There's possibly danger around. Well, being suicidal, the danger is yourself. The predator is yourself, you know. Just like when the bell rings, those neighborhoods always end as well. You go through a bad neighborhood and you come out in the suburbs somewhere or something like that. They end, you know. So the summer before last, I was going through one of those bad neighborhoods. And I had to be very vigilant of myself. Before I was about leaving, I thought, okay, I'm getting out of it. You know, I'm starting to think clearer. A friend of mine committed suicide, and what it was it was like me walking through this neighborhood, and I'm thinking I'm almost there. Like I can see the street sign that I know that sign is going to take me out, and I'm out of the neighborhood. Well, when this friend of mine took her life, what it was like is like I'm almost out of the neighborhood, and then somebody just drops dead right next to me. So she just got, you know, her life was taken. I have blood on my shoes, everything. And now I realize, and what a lot of times we're going through being suicidal, is we think we're out, we can see out, but we're not out. And the last little bits of triggers can get us. Those are the dangers that exist, and those are in our own minds. I ended up having to go to the hospital. Thank God I was able to speak to someone, which is why another reason for no suicide before reason. Sometimes we just need that one person to tell us to pick up the phone, you know.
That's true.
So I did take myself in, and they ended up keeping me. I was worse off than I thought I was. When I came out, it took a lot of healing. I had to change a lot of my lifestyle because a lot of mental illness and depression is chemical. We let us not fool ourselves. A lot of times, sometimes it's external factors, sometimes it's internal factors. There is no blanket reason, you know. So I took care of myself. I changed a lot of my eating habits, a lot of my thought processes. I had to proactively take control over. Last summer, well, I realized when I was in the hospital, there was a lot of people. Suicide is it's a human thing. It's not a cultural thing. It's a human thing. It becomes a culture. It becomes a cultural thing, though, to me, when people who look like me, who look like you, say, "Well, that's that's some other kind of people's disease." You know what I mean? That's something that happens over there in Beverly Hills or something. You know what I mean? And we do not. And therefore, we shut ourselves out. Not only do we shut out the people who are maybe going through something, but we shut ourselves out from allowing ourselves to feel, to heal, and then seek help. You know, I started no suicide. Yeah, I started no suicide before recess because I look like me. You look like me. And in the hospital, there were many people that look like us, and I would never have thought that. Right? I wanted to come out and to say, I didn't want to hide it. For many years, even when I was performing and I was writing, I would hide my pain. I wanted to be the person who had her life together. You know what I mean? you have this image out there that you keep up, this facade. And so whenever I was feeling weak or when I was suicidal, of course I would not want that out in public, but then I realized that that was me being part of the problem. And so having come out of the hospital, had a close friend of mine been taken away by suicide, I did not want to be a part of that problem anymore. And if it was to just open up and bear the embarrassment, then I would do it. And the thing about this work is it's very quiet. This work is not the kind of work that will give you a lot of accolades because people are timid, like you said earlier in the program, either through ignorance or, as I said, through shame. And so it's very quiet work. It's very quiet work. The good things that have come out of No Suicide Before Recess is a community. People that I've known for years have come to me that I never thought were suffering inside the way they were, to say thank you, like what can important. I do? Yes, absolutely, because now they know they're not alone.
Yes.
Now that they're not right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah, exactly that. Yeah. Now that we're not alone, we can heal not only ourselves but someone else. It's almost like when they do those like I might know this one, I might know you, but I don't know your friends. And if you are going through something, and just by you hearing or experiencing someone who is going through something that you can recognize and relate to, you open up, right? I might not know your friends. You know your friends, but now you take that power that you have gained and you take that insight that you have gained and that confidence. Like, nothing's wrong with me. Nothing's wrong with me. This is a thing, and we're just going to deal with it. Now the
because
people that you know,
knowledge is power.
Yes, now it's power. Now you are empowered, and even though I don't know your friends, you know your friends, and you heal your friends, and the friends that they have that you don't know, and so we spread it like that.
Absolutely. You said something when you were talking about when you were in the hospital, and I wanted to talk about this one little quote that stuck with me as I talk about abuse and how important it is to get help, how important it is to not suffer in silence, how important it is to go to therapy. I constantly talk about that. Well, the young man, Kevin Hines, who attempted suicide jumping off of the Golden Gate Bridge, and he lived through that. And it was a long road to his recovery. And I followed him, and he actually has a documentary and things like that. Well, one of the quotes that he said is, "It's okay not to be okay, but it's not okay not to get help."
Right.
And that really stuck with me. And so when you were saying you were in the hospital, and then there were many people who looked like us who were in there, and how our culture, I can't really speak for other cultures at this moment because I can only speak for our culture. We don't like to get help. We don't like to get therapy. We're so used to the stigma back in the day where we kept Uncle Richie Jr. up in the back room. We knew he was mentally ill, but we kept him up in the back room when nobody dealt with him, or whoever the family member was. We kept them locked away instead of getting help. And so they're still doing that. What goes on in this house stays in this house, and nobody talk about what's going on in the family. Yeah. And so with you doing this movement, I'm so happy that you have this movement. If there's anything that we can do here at Courageous Awareness to help you to get this movement, more out there, we certainly want to know what that is. We will do it. You have our support because we have to get the information out. We need to make people aware of what's going on. So please tell us, how can we help you here at Courageous Awareness?
Thank you so much for that. We are new. We're in our infancy. And our base, we're spreading, but we're spreading very slowly. The word is spreading very slowly. because it's spreading organically. And so what would be very helpful to us is for you to share us, for anyone who is, within your reach, to just share us, look us up. You don't even have to share us. But if you look us up, and if you are in that place where you need, just that would help. That would help. Also, we are in process of filing for our nonprofit status, and so anyone with knowledge that we are not aware of, maybe you have experience with all the grant writings and procedures and all of those things. It takes a community, and I am not above asking for help in these manners because I can't do it by myself. We can't do it by ourselves. Just talking to you, I haven't spoken to you before, but your cause and what you're doing here at Courageous Awareness, just the interim of me listening to the initial audios while I sat here was healing. It put me in a space where I centered myself, and that is powerful. And I will take that light. I will take your word and your work, and I will spread that.
Thank you very much. Together we will heal nations. Together we can do this as one. If we all put, our everybody can eat off the table. Let's say it like that. And so if we all work together, I got that from my girl, Soul Kitten. That's another one of the lovely ladies here at the OP Radio Network. And if we all work together, that's what we do. Mm-hmm. That's being courageous. That's bringing awareness. That's tackling the ugly topics that no one wants to talk about.
Absolutely, yes.
And that's what we're going to do. And, with awesome people like you out here working, the stuff that we do, people may not see it right away, but they'll see it. And they're looking, and they're listening. And that's what we want to do. We want to make an impact, and we want to touch people one person at a time, one family at a time.
Absolutely, absolutely, because healing is in itself powerful. There's so many of us, especially women, I'm not going to say especially women these days, but there's so many of us who have had our power taken away from us, One important thing about what you're doing, about what I'm trying to do, is to bring people together in different phases of healing, in the healing process, because they say when you read a book once or twice, if you read it the first time, you're going to see one thing. If you go back and read that same book 2 years later, you're going to see something else because you're a different person. And so you're going to learn something different from that. And so bringing together people in different phases of the healing process is absolutely empowering to ourselves. I have some experience in rape crisis advocacy. One of the first things that they teach us before we go into this room to see this woman or person who has been broken in that particular moment is that she has had her power taken away from her, and our power is to give her that power back. And we do that by lowering ourselves physically below her eyesight. We do that because we have the power to do that. Our humility has the power to give someone else their power back, to let them know that they deserve and they are worthy of this. And if they can look at someone who seems to be healed, and we willingly and without hesitation lower ourselves before another sister to give her power back when we know it's been taken away, that is the greatest thing that we can do for each other. And that's why the work that you're doing, I am so thankful for. I am so inspired.
All right, welcome back to Courageous Awareness. Oh, we're having such a great time tonight. I hope that you all are enjoying yourself, getting this great information that we need that will help someone, either to help ourselves, someone in our family, someone, neighbors, work, anybody that we may be able to help. We can feel a little more educated tonight and be able to help someone So I want to just give the number really quickly. If anybody out there wants to call in and ask a question, our lovely guest would be willing to answer a few questions if you guys have some. So that's 929-477-3384, and you can hit the number 1, and that will alert me, and we're going to go ahead and let you talk to this awesome, phenomenal woman. But while we wait for that to happen, I want to get some information from you, Journey. How can my audience get in touch with you? You have Instagram, social media, whatever your social media contact information is in your website.
The website I got to get y'all tomorrow. I'm sorry. I have someone who has all that stuff, but I'm easily accessible at Instagram. No Suicide Before Recess. Just type that in. We do have a Facebook page we're able to put a whole lot more information out, and that is at No Suicide Before Recess as well. The episodes, what we are also, I got so caught up in talking about other things, what No Suicide Before Recess, our methodology of saving lives is through media. And so we are a docuseries. This is our way of how we're going to do it. A docuseries in which we interview different people, either the sufferers of mental illness or the ones that love us and who have problems trying to understand where it is that we're coming from. We're trying to bridge that gap. And so in order to view those little mini documentaries, you can go on to YouTube at No Suicide Before Recess. And either which one of those, you'll get to me and whatever I can do to connect you to the people that you need to be connected to. Or if it's just someone that you just need to confide in, I'm going to be here for you.
Awesome information. And I will make sure that information is also on the Courageous Awareness page as well. As I told you, we will certainly help you to get the word out. Mm-hmm. I love your transparency tonight. It has been so helpful, and in this day and time, we need transparency. It's time out for fake. It's time out for people wearing the mask. We've done that for so many years, and now it's time to remove those masks and live and walk in our truth, because that will help someone else to live another day. And so thank you so very much for being transparent. And as I told you before, you don't have to, you don't feel timid. You can talk about it. I mean, we have 7 and 8 year olds committing suicide, and you had a little story about the young boy. Talk a little bit about that, because these are real things that are happening.
Right, absolutely. Like I mentioned to you earlier, that I suffered from suicide ideation since I was a child, and so this hit me particularly hard. I'm so embarrassed I forgot. My mind skipped on the details, the information of the name. But he was an 8-year-old boy who suffered from depression, and he was under medication for that depression. What he decided to do is, every time his mother would take him to the doctor, and as parents we need to be vigilant of this, and this is why it's important to say, because sometimes we are blinded. We're not aware of the capabilities of our children at times. This young boy, 8 years old, was prescribed antidepressant medication. And every time he would keep his normal appointments, every time the doctor would prescribe him or refill his prescriptions, he would, of course, instead of taking them, he would stockpile them. He kept them in his room. He would collect these bottles of prescription until he had enough to kill himself. And when the time came when he thought he had enough pills to do what he wanted to do with it, he took all of the medication, and he ended up dying because of that. Right in his mother's house, under her roof. And so we have to be very vigilant and proactive in our communications with each other. Sometimes I think children fall between cracks because we think they're kids. You know, too many times society equates suicide and depression with adult issues, you know, finances or relationships or, you know, socioeconomic problems. That we look at kids and we say, okay, their lives are great. They haven't come to the point where they're going to have problems enough to cause a depressive bout. Well, I'm here to tell you, knowing from experience, that I am one of those people who suffered from it as a chemical way, as a child, which is why I came up with no suicide before Reese's. This boy was 8 years old, and so it's possible, and we need to be aware of that.
Okay. Well, I'm going to just ask you one more question, and then we're going to go ahead and, let me see. What was my question? My question was, if there's a young child listening right now, a mother, you know, someone who wants to give up, what would you tell them? Give them some final words, some encouraging words. Tell me what you would tell them.
Okay, there would be, I would tell them different things. For the child, if there's you said if the child was maybe 12 or in that age or younger, you know, I would tell them different things than the adult. For that child, I would say to hold on. Their minds are in a different space than adults are, so they look at safety and life differently. I have to tell this quick story. When I was a kid, I came very, very close. I was thinking about suicide constantly. I was maybe not even 5 or 6. I just knew that I was so depressed, and I just wanted the pain to end. And because I didn't know that I had a mental condition, that a mental illness, I externalized and internalized. I thought I was feeling this way because of my parents or my family or because of school. I didn't know. I was looking for a reason. And as a child, we look for that. We look for reasons how to logicalize this emotion. Well, we had a fair. I'm from Hawaii originally, and there's a 50th state fair. And so my plan was, before I knew that there was a fair, that I was going to commit suicide. I was going to take my life for 2 reasons. 1, to end the pain. 2, so that my parents or whoever was hurting my feelings that I had no idea who was, that they would know how much I hurt. Well, as a child, I also thought as a child. And so this 50th State Fair was a big deal, you know, in our little island. And I didn't want to miss it. I thought to myself, in my child's mind, if I take my life now, they're just going to bury me and then go to the fair. And then what's the point in that? I want to go, you know, and so kids, they think differently. Sometimes it doesn't make sense as adults, you know what I mean? So as a child, I'm going to tell you that this feeling's going to end. This feeling's going to end, and you will have the most beautiful days, and you will feel so powerful you would never even imagine you could feel such power. But I'm going to also be the one to be very honest with you. There is no happily ever after. There is no time that you're going to look at life and you're going to be like, okay, if I stop feeling this way next week, you know, if I work really hard and I get myself happy, that I'm never going to be sad again. You are going to be sad. You're going to be devastated sometimes. That's life, ups and downs emotionally, you know.
Great.
So you have to be prepared for when that sadness comes back. But know that it's all in a cycle. The sad's going to come, and then the happy's going to come, the sad and the happy. And you just roll with it. Along the way, pick up some tools, you know. See your guidance counselor at school or someone that you can trust. Write a diary if there's no one you can trust. As long as you're getting it out, what you're doing is if you can't find a safe place to cry, a lot of times when you just talk out loud or write it down, that is your spirit's way of crying. And crying is very important because it relieves us of a burden that we're carrying. So as a child, I suggest you do that. As an adult, you know, I was a single mother for very many years. And it's rough. The pressure and the responsibility, and sometimes it's like, you know, these kids, especially when they get to teenage years, sometimes it feels like they don't know everything that we're doing and this is how we're thinking. It's just what it looks like from the inside out. They do love you. They do appreciate you. You are doing as much as you can, and whatever it is that you are doing, it's going to come. And you're doing it now. What it is that you're feeling is emotions, and emotions will come, and they'll go, just like I just said. You know, there's not a happily ever after. A lot of times we are socialized to think that there's going to be a happy place, and after that there's nothing else. That if we feel sad again, we feel like failures. Like, how did I get in this situation again? How, you know, just by emotionally feeling depressed, we feel like we failed, and that is absolutely ridiculous.
Oh, my goodness. Well, you have given out some information tonight, and I just want to thank you so very much. I want to welcome you to the family. we enjoyed you so much this evening.
Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you. We have your information. We have all of your contact information. You won't give me that other one. You're going to give me your email information as well. Not email, I'm sorry. It was your website, right?
The website is going to be live tomorrow, but it is nosuicidebeforeresus.org.
Okay.